pizzas, I always ask what kind you want. And I know it's my fault for not, saying anything, but I just forgot. But that's okay. I got chicken, that's the main thing. I got some chicken. Let's put that over there. Okay. So, got some gravy and some coleslaw. I got 4 pieces of chicken. Okie dokie. Wow. Almost gotta be around Schwarzenegger to one of these things. Okay. Now, got some DR.PEPPER. Okie dokie. So, one of my viewers recently suggested a story, and that story was about having kids. Now, this person, I won't mention his name because I never got his permission, but I call him Uncle, so he knows who he is, or who I'm referring to. But anyways, he said he just recently became a father for the first time, and a few others have let me know that they become parents for the first time as well, or grandparents for the first time, or the second time, or whatever. So anyways, he said, how would you like to do a video about, raising your kids, because I could really relate to something like that right now. And I thought, what a good idea, because, in a lot of my videos I mentioned my kids, but I've never really gone in depth, about, beginning to end, or not that's, they've come to their end or nothing, but you know what I mean, I haven't gone from the starting point to when they were, first conceived, which I'm not going to, because then I'd have to change the rating of this channel from PG-13 to XXX. So anyways, I'm going to start at the beginning. So anyways, first of all, I need a bite of this chicken. I can put a bit of gravy on there. The gravy tastes like it used to years and years and years ago. Chicken's good, like I said. I'm sorry I forgot to get the extra crispy. I'll try and chew extra loud. Anyways, so my ex and I, we started living together in 81. We bought our first house in 1983. We got married in 83, in July of 83, and we bought our house in October of 83, took possession November 1st. So, because we had, our house and we were married, we thought the next thing to do is to have kids. That's what you do, right? So anyway, so we talked about having kids. And my ex told me one day that she was pretty sure she was pregnant. So she went to the doctor, and sure enough, she was pregnant. So, that's good news. So we tell everybody, that we're going to have a baby and that sort of thing. And I remember everybody kept asking me, are you excited about that? And I thought, I'd know. I kind of thought there's something wrong with me because I wasn't real excited. I wasn't jumping up and down, but, I was pretty, I was cool with it, But I remember thinking that maybe we should wait a while so we can kind of, live our lives a bit. I remember sitting in a bar one time with a buddy of mine, we were having a beer, and I said, I'm not sure about having kids, if I would be a very good dad, or if I would have, if this is what I really want. He says, oh, Mark, because he just had a kid, him and his wife, and he said, if you don't have kids, you're missing out. He said, it's the greatest joy in the world. So anyways, he His name is Tim. So anyways, my ex and I are having a baby. And, we're, looking forward to it. We're going to be a family. So, like I said, we tell everybody. And this one day I get a phone call from my ex at work. And she said, I think I might be miscarrying. But I've got an appointment this afternoon to see the doctor. So she went and saw the doctor that afternoon. Sure enough, she had miscarried. And I felt suddenly like I was sort of taking that for granted, and I felt really, really, really low and really bad about that, because I thought, we're getting all ready to have a baby, and even though I wasn't overly excited, I remember feeling very let down, and it'd be years later, and I'd realize that, it would still bother me years later, because I thought, that was a life that was starting. That was one of my kids, but they didn't make it. Now everybody tells you, well, it's very common, especially with the first one, to miscarry, or she miscarried for a reason, So everybody wants to give you these reassuring words, and so we realized there was nothing we could do, so that was that. But then it made me realize what if I can't have kids? See, I kind of taken that whole, attitude for granted, So I thought I'm not going to be like that anymore. So, sometime around, I guess it's probably around the fall of 84, my ex gets pregnant again. So of course we're looking forward to the baby. And put some of that gravy on my chicken too. It's not long before things are going good, and we tell everybody. And then it's not long before she starts to show a little bit, And I worked with a lot of women in healthcare, and that's a very big moment, This one lady I worked with, she came and told me, so I guess you heard I'm pregnant. I said, yeah, I did hear that, but I didn't want to say anything until you told me. And she says, and I'm starting to show, and she goes like this, shows me, and I couldn't really see it, but I didn't want to burst a bubble, so I said, that's great, But anyways, it was wonderful, because remember, when my ex started to show, of course, she was very proud of that, and so was I. So it was one day, I'm not sure how many months pregnant she was, but she was walking to the mall one day. No, actually, I was on my day off. I would go down and have coffee with her because she worked at the mall at a bakery. And I went down there, and as I was walking up, I'd seen her walk out the bakery and down the hallway of the mall. And so I followed her, and she's walking kind of like this, right? Really showing off her belly. I thought that just looks so good. There's my ex, very proud of being pregnant. So of course I walked up behind her, kind of pinched her ass, and she whipped around, and then when she saw it was me, and started laughing, of course. But it was a beautiful sight to see. So anyways, she was becoming more pregnant, and she was getting, her regular doctor visits. Things are going good. And we started talking about, being in the delivery room, with her. And so many people say, are you going to be in the delivery room with her? And I said, oh yeah. And everyone said, that's great. Except for my neighbor, Jimmy, across the street. Jimmy was an older feller. Well, he's probably my age now back then, but he loved to stir the pot, he said, you're going to be in the delivery room. And I said, oh yeah. He says, well, you'll never want to have sex with your wife again. He says, once you see that, you'll never want to have sex. I mean, this is coming from a guy who not only never had kids, he was never married. Never had a girlfriend the whole time I know him. And he's giving me advice about that. Anyways, I just ignored it. So we started going to prenatal classes, and we got an ultrasound of the baby. I remember seeing the ultrasound, and everyone said, oh, you'll be so excited when you see your first ultrasound. You can see the baby, you know, this. Well, when I saw it, I gotta be honest, it looked like a weather map of Saskatchewan. It was just this thing sort of, you know, moving around, right? The doctor's pointing out this and that, and then I could kind of see the baby sitting there. It almost looked like it was sucking its thumb or something, but, so anyways, everything was very healthy, and then, you know, things were going great. We never did know the sex of any of our babies till they were born. That was just that was our choice. Didn't want to know. So this one day, my wife is several months pregnant, and a friend of mine who lived on one of the small islands, the island was called Gabriola. My partner Linda lived there as a teenager. For a while, her dad moved the family there in '67. He just recently passed away, so he lived there for 56 years. But that's the type of island where you'll find a lot of very laid-back people. You know, back-to-earth people, you know. Some people call them hippies, whatever. It's one extreme to the other. You can find a lot of wealthy people. They're the ones with the big houses on the waterfront. Usually. Anyways, my friend Guillaume, he lived there. Guillaume was a lovely man, very nice. I first met him in '82. I was playing in a country band, in a top 40 band. I was jamming with different people. And he was playing in a reggae band with some other friends of mine. And he wanted if I wanted to jam with his reggae band. They didn't have a drummer, so I said, okay, sure. I know nothing about reggae music. I mean, I'd heard of Peter Tosh and Bob Marley and the Wailers, and you know, and that was about it, right? You know, so he turned me on to some reggae music. Now it's funny because Guillaume had dark crimson red hair and was in dreadlocks. I got some buzzing around here, and it was so funny because he almost kind of looked like Sideshow Bob on The Simpsons. Kind of, you know, he's kind of a taller guy, but he was a lovely man. I never heard him say a bad word about anybody. He never scowled. He was always smiling. He was very easygoing, funny. Had a really good way of expressing himself. A very nice guy. So, I kind of credit him for turning me on to reggae music. And it's funny because when I first heard reggae music, I wasn't crazy about it, but I learned to love it in a short time. So getting back to where I was, actually I'd just say, to paint you a picture of Guillaume, one day you could see him wearing a poncho and slippers and some baggy pants. You could see him a week later, he'd be wearing camouflage black boots and a beret or a headband or something. I mean, he was always changing, but yet he was always the same person, kind of reinventing himself, sort of. He was not afraid to express himself. So we're sitting there talking one day, my ex, myself, and Guillaume. And Guillaume said, have you ever considered having a home birth? And we thought, was interesting. He starts talking about it. And it turns out he had delivered some babies, which didn't surprise me. You know, if anyone else had said that would surprise me, but not come from him. He had delivered 2 babies on the island, a few babies in other parts of the province, and he'd been part of a lot of home births, you know, assisting or just watching or whatever. All his kids are born at home. And so he said, you know, it's you may want to consider that. Now the thought of it right away made me nervous. And but I listened. So he says, well, next time I'm back, I'll give you some books. And he said, you know, just, you know, give you something to think about. So anyway, a couple of days later, drops off these books. One of them is by Ina May Gaskin, a renowned midwife. And so we poured over those books. And I mean, it was interesting. It didn't surprise me that Keon practiced midwifery. It didn't surprise me at all. Because, you know, he was just that type of person, right? So, my ex and I poured over these books, talked about it, and just said, you know, it'd be kind of interesting to have a home birth. And I said, yeah. But then we thought, well, you know what? As interesting as it sounds, it's our first baby. What if something went wrong and we had to call an ambulance or something, right? You know, is this really what we want to do? Because every time we mentioned this to somebody, they were almost like, they couldn't believe it. They say, you got to be kidding, you know, like, why would you want to do that? You know? We got to think, you know, I don't think we should have a home birth. I think we should have the baby in the hospital. So we came to that conclusion. That was the best thing to do. And Keon said, yeah, I totally understand. No worries. But I thanked him for educating us on that subject. It was very interesting. So we're going to prenatal classes. And one of the things we had to do was practice my ex having contractions. And then we'd start timing the contractions, that kind of thing. And so throughout the day or every once in a while, I'd say, okay, you're having contractions. And then she'd kind of freeze and clutch the table, you know. And, you know, we'd try not to giggle and pretending she's having contractions so we could prepare ourselves for the real event, right? And this one day, little slip of the tongue, I said, okay, you're having an orgasm. And then, oh, no, that's not what I want to say. Anyways, it was funny. We cracked up. So this, excuse me, she was, the baby was due in August. So it was one night. Now, I have to say my ex was a real trooper. She worked right until her 8th month at the bakery. And back in those days, you got 4 months maternity leave. Now you get a year. This is up here in Canada. I don't know it's like anywhere else, but you get a year now. Back then you got 4 measly months. So anyways, this one night, we go to bed. I'm just in a nice deep sleep, and she wakes me up and says, I think we need to go to the hospital. And I just jumped out of bed. I knew what that meant. Now she had a bag all packed and ready to go. She had that now for weeks. And so we had, I always had gas in the car, you know, and stuff like that. So, okay, so I dressed this in the wee hours of the morning. Drive to the hospital. Sure enough, she's dilating. Pardon my stomach. It's that DR.PEPPER. I like it, but it don't like me. So anyways, we go in there. And baby starts coming. And in no time, a little baby boy pops out. Wow. Now he knew what Tim was talking about. What a joy. I can't describe the feeling of, I had a son, you know. We named him Dylan. I had a son. I thought, wow. I remember holding him. He was 7 pounds, 5 ounces. And I was just, wow. And my ex was just all sweaty and lying there, just beat, right? And I'm holding this little guy, and I just, the feeling that came over me, I just couldn't believe it. So anyways, you know, everything was going good. He looked great. Really good color. Excuse me. I'm sorry about that. Excuse me. My goodness. Like I said, that stuff was brutal. So anyways, I'm going to eat this skin. I'm going to punish myself even more. So, I went out in the hallway, made a few phone calls. I didn't care that it was 5 or 6 in the morning. I just started phoning. My parents were happy. My sister, I got her to bed, but she couldn't be unhappy with that kind of news, right? So, I remember I went home, fell asleep, got up, went to visit my ex in the hospital. By this time, it's like afternoon. Visit the baby again. My parents came up to see the baby, and you know, it was just wonderful. Stayed there for quite a while. That night, I remember after I'd visited a couple times that day, I made lots of phone calls. I remember it was getting to be around 9 or 10 o'clock. My neighbors next door, Robert and Shelley came over. And they had 3 kids. They had a son named Dylan. He was their oldest, but he was already 10 years old. They brought a bottle of wine, and we placed a couple doobies, and we just talked about all kinds of stuff, mainly about kids and whatever. I remember after they left, I'm sitting there by myself, and I thought, wow, I'm a dad, you know. Less than 24 hours ago, less than, 15 hours ago, I wasn't a dad, but here I am, I'm a dad now, it's just, what a feeling, what a feeling. So, of course, the time comes to bring the baby home from the hospital. Now, back in those days, I think you're in the hospital for about 3 days, 4 days. In my mom's day, you're in there for about a week. Nowadays, it's almost like you go through a drive-thru, have a baby. A couple hours later, you're out with a pop and some fries. It's ridiculous. Kind of shoot you in and out. So, we bring the baby home. I'm driving so carefully, really careful. I mean, I'm just taking my time. Got my route all mapped out. Bring the baby home. My friend Kelly comes over, and lots of other friends and family. They all want to see the little guy. Got the bassinet, all that. I remember my ex having to get up in the middle of the night, breastfeed. And, of course, the baby gets older. Oh, I remember the first bath. My ex gave the baby the first bath. In the kitchen, little bathtub there. And just, he's just all like this, right? And just, gently giving him a bath. And just, it was just such a turning point in our, not just our marriage, but our lives, just wonderful. I suddenly realized, yeah, my friend Tim was really right. There was no greater joy than having kids. It was fabulous. So anyway, gotta get some of that gravy there. So, the little guy starts growing. So Dylan's getting, he's a year old, and everything's so exciting. I remember when he was probably around 2, I came home from work one day and my ex meets me at the door and she said, he's hiding. He wanted to hide on me. So I go and I said, oh, where's Dylan? Where's Dylan at? And I hear this giggling behind the curtains, right? And I go over there and I can see his little feet sticking out underneath the curtains. He has little boots on, right? That was so cute because they're on the wrong feet, that was over 35 years ago. I remember like it was 5 minutes ago, Those little things are just so much joy, So anyways, it wasn't long before we were planning another child. So, next thing you know, my ex is pregnant again. And in between that, it was so much fun, having Dylan. Not so much at the first Christmas, but the second one, he was more aware of the tree and the lights and stuff like that. And it's so wonderful when I come home from work. He'd be sitting in his high chair at lunchtime or whenever. I'd come home and he'd be eating. And he had, his face all full of food, whatever. And I'd come home and he'd be so excited to see me, right? I just, the feeling that you just, you can't describe that. When the little guy is just so happy to see his dad. And I remember when he cut his first tooth. I remember going to work and telling one of my coworkers. At that time, was one of my supervisors at that time. I said, yeah, my little guy cut his tooth. And he kind of looked at me like I was from outer space because he didn't have any kids. He couldn't see what the big deal was, So anyways. But I remember my son Dylan's first words were, we were sitting at supper time, and you could tell his mumbling sounded more like words. And at one point he said, eat your food. Eat your food, Dad. Those are his first words. And that was just so cool. So now, our second child was due in 1988, in the spring. Now, right from the go, my ex noticed a big difference. With our first, she had some morning sickness. With this child, she was sick every day. Sick a lot. I'd be cooking dinner, and she'd be sitting in the kitchen talking to me, and all of a sudden, just the smell of the cooking made her run for the bathroom. She was just really sick a lot. But actually, I gotta jump back here for a second. When we brought our first baby home, like I said, we had all kinds of family come over to see him, and I just thought of this. My ex's brother, who was about 20-something at the time, he comes over. He lived out of town, about an hour and a half north of where we lived. And he comes down, and he knows nothing about babies. He's never been around babies, knows nothing about them. And our little baby at that time was probably about 2 weeks old. And he looks at me and says, so if you put him on the ground, we start crawling around. And I said, no, babies don't crawl that early. And he says, well, no teeth yet. Like he was serious. He had no idea. He thought a baby should have teeth and be crawling by 2 weeks. But it was kind of cute. My niece, who was about 8 at the time, they just had some kittens, and she wanted to know when our our little guy with his eyes open. And we said, no, our babies are always born with their eyes open. So anyways, we're now pregnant with our second baby. He's due in the spring. And like I said, my ex noticed she was sick a lot more. So we decided to, we wanted to videotape this one. So, asked the dog was okay with it. He said, don't worry, I'll make sure I comb my hair. Go into the delivery room. You know, the pregnancy, everything seemed normal aside from my ex being very sick. You know, go in there and videotaping. Everything goes good. The little guy pops out. He's a bit heavier. He's 8.6 pounds. So that's fine. Got pictures of myself holding him and my ex holding him and everybody else. And so that's good. Now he was born in April. Beautiful evening. Had the back door of the delivery room open. And so about, I guess about 9 or 10 o'clock at night, I'm leaving to go home. I'm walking over the dog, we're talking. I get home the next day. I go to see my ex, and she said the baby's in an incubator. That kind of freaked me out. Kind of, but then I was in an incubator myself. Now they put Colin, that was his name, Colin. That is his name. We put Colin in, they put Colin in the incubator because his skin was a bit kind of, a little bit gray, they weren't sure about circulation, but left him in there for about 24 hours and he was fine. But I remember thinking, oh wow, now I've got 2 sons. Like I was just so excited, you know, like I just couldn't believe it. It was one thing to have 1 son, but now I got 2. You know, I was like, wow, you know, just that feeling you get. You know, like I said, you can't describe it if you've never been a parent. You know, like it's just amazing, just wonderful. So my first born, Dylan was born in '85. Colin's born in '88. So it's kind of a carbon copy. First one, bring him home. Everybody comes to see him, and like I meet the baby thing. And so as he's getting a bit older, a few months, we noticed that he didn't seem to respond to sound very much, if at all. And we would sit there and go, we'd call his name and whatever, and he wouldn't respond. And that kind of worried us. So this one night, you know, we were convinced that maybe he was either deaf or had some hearing problems. And so my wife, he was sitting in his little seat there, and my ex-wife came up behind him, and she had a pot and a wooden spoon, just tapped it a little bit like this, which should have startled him, but it didn't. And he just sat there, and so our hearts just sunk. And I remember the next day we're driving to the doctor, and they're going to do some tests, and my wife was crying the whole time, and we were both very upset. Well, they did some tests, and his hearing was fine. Praise the Lord for that. I'm glad I got the extra piece of chicken. So, I have to tell you something kind of funny too. When he was born, believe it or not, at that time, my ex had an IUD. We were practicing some birth control at that time. She had an IUD, did see the IUD in the placenta. So obviously it wasn't very effective. But anyways, of course my He-Man joke was that I was so potent nothing could stop me, right? So kind of boosted my ego there a bit. But anyways, so we noticed also that he was developing normal as a baby, ate like a horse, was doing very well, crawled, but he wasn't talking. He would point and make these verbal sounds like this, He would verbalize and point and whatever, but he wouldn't actually talk. And this went on now for a while. And we thought, wow, excuse me, we need to do something about this. So he was now almost 3 and still not talking. I guess he's about 2.5. So we took him to the Child Development Center. We had him checked out by all kinds of doctors, so we put him in the Child Development Center, and they worked with him. We even took him to a child psychologist. That was the doctor suggested that. So the Child Development Center, they were very good. They taught him some basic sign language. And they said, they felt the reason he wasn't talking was he just didn't feel like talking. He just didn't want to, because some babies just, that's the way they are. I wasn't quite satisfied with that explanation, but anyways, they taught him basic sign language, milk, C for chocolate, and different things. So he got his chocolate milk, very basic, but it worked, we were able to communicate much better. And then, so he was with the Child Development Center for quite a while, several months, and continued to, just kind of go along. He wasn't getting worse, but he still wasn't talking. And he could be quite stubborn at times, too. So I think it was July of 1988, he was about, no, not 88, sorry. 91. He was 3 years old. 3 years and 3 months, I think, yeah. We were camping, and just out of the blue he started talking. It was just so weird. We went on this camp trip, and he just started talking. I couldn't believe there's no more sign language, no more, pointing and talking Martian, He just started talking, and it was weird. So, and then from then on, he was just like everybody else, But it was just such a bizarre thing. And I remember years later, I was talking to him, and we went out for dinner one night, and I asked him about that. And I said, how come you didn't talk? Do you remember that? What was the reason? And he looked at me and said, I just didn't have anything to say. And I thought, buddy, you're full of beans. But, who knows, right? But he certainly talks now. But anyways, time went on. Dylan, my oldest boy, was so excited to have a little brother. So excited. Wasn't long. In 1990, we have another baby. Once again, we never wanted to know the sex of the babies until they were born. So my exes do to have a baby in there. Just after the New Year in 1990, sure enough, February 9th, go to the hospital. Now we knew the baby kept turning around. Didn't want to come out head first. And the doctor said, well, specialist. You should have a specialist in the delivery room. He recommended a specialist who would deliver the baby in the event that the baby would breach and not want to come out head first. So when the time came to take my ex to the hospital, we go there. They tried to turn the baby around, which it did, but then it would just turn right back around. It did not want to come out head first. So of course they had to perform a C-section, which meant that I could not be in the delivery room. And so it was lights out for my ex. Now, I'm sitting right outside the delivery room. I can hear almost everything. You know, the baby comes out. My ex is out like a light, but they do a C-section. They take the baby out. And all of a sudden I can hear this crying, and I thought, oh, wow. You could hear the staff thinking, oh, this is great, it's, they didn't say whether it's a boy or a girl, but they said, oh, that's good, just suction and all that, whatever they have to do. And a few minutes later, this nurse comes out, and she's got a little baby wrapped in a blanket, and she holds it down and said, you got a little girl. And I thought, wow, I was just speechless. I had 2 boys and a girl, and I know my ex, the reason we tried for a 3rd child was she really wanted to have a little girl. The neighbors across the street had 2 boys and a girl. And I remember the lady saying that, I think you should try for a 3rd because you just might get that little girl. So when Brianna was born, I had my little girl. She was about 6 pounds. And I phoned my neighbors. When I got home, it was just before everybody was going to work. It was probably about maybe 7 in the morning. And I phoned them. And Rod answered the phone. And I said, can you tell Maureen that, no, I said, I just want to let you know that Susan had a baby girl last night. And Rod said, Susan had a baby girl. And I could hear his wife, Maureen, in the background going, yay! She was all excited, and she was just really, really excited for my ex and myself. So I had 3 kids. Eventually we get bunk beds and they'd go to play school and preschool and whatever, kindergarten. I so remember walking my little girl to school, Brianna. She was going to kindergarten, and kindergarten was at the big school. It was in one of the portables, I think, or I can't remember, but anyways, it was at the big school. We had to go there for the first day, and she's all dressed up, and we're walking up there. And as we get close, you can see all the kids out there. It's like a little beehive, right? And I feel her squeezing my hand and kind of pulling back. And I said, don't worry, Daddy's here. I'm going in there with you. And because that's such a scary moment, But I can still feel her squeezing my hand. And I got to tell you, my friends, that little girl's now 33, and I'd give anything to have her squeeze my hand, It's just, so you got to enjoy your kids while they're little, because in a blink of an eye, they'll be grown up, believe me. It happened so quick. Same with my boys. I remember taking Colton to play school. I guess he was about maybe 4 or something. And his first day, he just interacted with other kids who were playing games, and he felt so proud to be going to. It was up at the fire hall, this one, right? And he was so happy to be part of that. And like I said, as time went on, we got them into softball. I can still see my little girl running around the bases, her hair blowing in the wind, running like the wind. But it was so amazing seeing the kids was a Sunday school bus, which is like a normal yellow bus, but the church owned this Sunday school bus. And she was getting off, and a car passed the bus, which you're not supposed to do. I mean, everybody knows you don't pass the school bus, especially when the lights are flashing and, hello. And she just walked out in front of from the bus to go up to her house, and this car just plowed into her, so she had to be airlifted to Vancouver. And of course, she survived. Praise the Lord for that. But when she was in the hospital, my ex went over there and stayed there for a few days. We had some friends she could stay with. And this one day she's there, and they gathered up all the kids that were able to move down to a big room. Now my daughter was in a wheelchair for a while, but because her leg was all busted up and whatever, she recuperated, but she's in a wheelchair, and they wheeled her down this big room with all those other kids. And all of a sudden, I remember one of the nurses told my ex that we're getting some special visitors. And all of a sudden the door opens, and all these guys come in, and they all have these Canucks uniforms on. And my ex thought, what the heck? Then she realized it was the Vancouver Canucks. They had come in, and Trevor Linden, he posed with my daughter, and my daughter got her picture taken with Trevor Linden. And the news crew was there, and she was on TV, That was kind of cool, but it was so nice of the Canucks to come in, and Trevor Linden is just such a wonderful, generous man with his time, And to do that, to make those kids feel special, it's just wonderful. But years later, she got a settlement for that accident. And she's completely fine now, but when I heard that, I got the phone call at work that she'd been hit by a car. My whole world just sunk. I thought, oh my gosh, I almost collapsed. But like I said, you never stop worrying about them. I mean, my oldest boy got caught shoplifting from 7-Eleven, and we took him down to the police station. They took him to an interrogation room and scared the living daylights out of him, and I think that smartened him up. And my daughter used to sneak out of her room. And believe it or not, oldest trick in the world, you take her blankets, stuffed pillows and stuff underneath it. Then sneak out, you go in there, you think she's asleep because she'd always sleep there under the covers. Pull the covers back, there's nothing but pillows, cushions, and stuffed animals. And she's gone like a fart in a windstorm, right? She started doing that when she discovered boys. Trying to get that crispiness. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. This is the second time I've gone to KFC and forgot to order the extra crispy. By raising kids, it's fabulous. No greater joy. No one gives me more joy than my 3 kids. Now, gotta drink some of this gravy. Now, if only they would have kids of their own. That would be really amazing. Linda has 4 grandkids. They're all girls. But she has 4 grandkids, which is 4 more than me. So, oldest boys want to see the least of Dylan because he lives in Vancouver. He's a chef over there. I see my son Colin. He just texted me this morning. He lives in the same neighborhood that Linda and I do. And my little girl, she's hard to track down. She's such a social butterfly. And we texted last night again too. And because I want to take her and her husband out for dinner, her fiance out for dinner. Because they just got back from Disneyland. Oh, let me see. About a month ago, I guess. About 3 weeks ago. Excuse me, pardon me. So I want to hear all about their trip. That gives me a chance to see her as well. You know, she works very hard. So that's the thing when your kids are little, they're always at home. When they grow up, they get jobs. You know, it's like you just don't see them as much anymore. You know, I mean, it's just the way it is. You know. So to all you people out there considering having kids, you're thinking about it. You know, I don't like to tell people what to do or how to, you know, how to raise kids or nothing like that, or whether to have kids. By all means, that's your decision, and only you should make that. But I hope that you do make the right decision because kids are so wonderful, you know. And I remember, you know, my kids were little. You know, we tried to do everything right. You know, when they were first born, we put them in cloth diapers. We had the diaper pail, the cloth diapers, and we would use the disposable ones for day trips or going on overnighters or whatever, you know. And we did the cloth diapers for the first two kids, for Dylan and Colin. By the third one, we just said, it's too much work, so we started doing the, you know, what do you call them? The disposable ones, the Huggies, or what do you call them, you know. But there's another name for Pampers, yeah, Pampers, Huggies, whatever, you know. We started doing that. I got my chicken bones right here. But, yeah. And I remember the baby food, you know. We'd make up baby food. We'd make our own. We got a whole bunch of those little Gerber jars from somebody. We got them all cleaned up. We made our own baby food, which is easy enough, you know. Just puree peas and mash the potatoes and puree meat and everything and stuff like that. So, you know, that was easy enough to do. I remember this one time when our first Dylan, when he was little, my ex had to go somewhere, and I was all alone with him, and I had to feed him and all this. And I forget how old he was, but he was pretty small. And she wrote this little note, and she said, you know, the baby food's in the freezer where we kept it. Gotta take it and warm it up. And back then we didn't have a mic. We just had if you want to heat up a bottle, you put it in a pan of water and heat it up that way, right? And the baby food we had thawed out in the fridge, you know, a day or two before, and then, you know, just heat it up a little bit and then test it on your wrist. And she says, so the baby food's here and the bottle is there, and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And the very last thing I said, and don't worry, Mommy's on her way home. And I thought, yeah, that's good. It went well. It's just, you know, being alone with your little baby for the first time all by yourself, and Mom's not there. Of course, I'm just, you know, trying to do everything right, you know, and needless to say, like I said, you know, the diaper pail that went the way of the dinosaur after the first couple of babies, and we broke down, got ourselves a microwave. It was just so much easier with a microwave and just faster and whatever too, you know. But anyways, my friends, like I said, congratulations to all you people out there on your first baby or your second or third baby or your first grandbaby or great grandbaby. Congratulations to all of you, to all you parents out there. And thank you, Uncle, for suggesting this video. I want to hear more of your suggestions. I do get a lot of them, and I write them down if I think they'll suit this channel. Some of them I don't really think will suit the channel. It's like the odd one. But I always write them down, and I wanted to do like a longer video, so I was quite happy to do this one. I only wish I'd gotten the crispy chicken. You know, that's the second time I've gone to KFC, like I said, and forgot to order extra crispy. I don't know why that is, but I think it's because when I go to Popeyes or anywhere else, It's my fault. Anyways, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in. I love you all. Keep those comments coming. And like I said, suggestions, keep those coming.